Okay, so thank you for joining us, everybody, for today's session, which is all about data analytics. We're going to be specifically talking about Excel versus Power BI and why it might be time to move to the cloud. So at the end of the session today, we'll hopefully leave with a better understanding of what the cloud is, Excel's limitations when it comes to data analytics, and a clearer understanding of how Power BI can add value to your organisation. So with that, I will hand over to Jordan.
Thank you, Kelly. So hi everybody, thanks for joining today. We're just going to go into a couple of topics as Kelly just mentioned there. The first being, what is the cloud? And I'm sure many people have Googled what the cloud is because it means so many different things and interpreted so many different ways. But for this specific case where we're talking around data, analytics and software, it's essentially anything that's accessed over the internet. So cloud computing, you don't have to manage physical servers, physical areas where actually software applications are run from. They're not held locally on their own machines. It's all accessed via internet services. Just a real world example is if you got an iPhone, you take pictures. There's usually two options, or sometimes both, where you can store your pictures on your phone device itself and its hard drive, or they can be saved to iCloud. So in the example, if you then lose your iPhone, the photos that are saved on iCloud, which are therefore recoverable because they're stored via an internet service on through the cloud, whereas photos that are stored on your hard drive and your physical phone device are of course non-recoverable because you've lost that. So when we're talking about data and software, that same logic can be applied. It's where the data is stored and importantly accessed, one being over the internet and two being offline and on-premise is the other way of calling it. So for example, downloading an Excel file, saving it to your desktop and then emailing that to a colleague who then saves that to their desktop would be an example of on-premise or offline working, whereas a cloud would be online working, so using it via SharePoint, for example, or using Excel online, or tools like Power BI that access data through the internet and are cloud-based software. So hopefully that gives a good overview of what we mean by the cloud, and of course, when everybody in the industry, and every industry is talking cloud computing and moving to the cloud, it's because of how accessible and additional integrations are achieved through working with the cloud, which sort of leads us on to the topic of today's webinar, which is why Excel can and can't be used for its certain purposes, especially around analytics and reporting, what its limitations are and what the other options, including especially Power BI within the Microsoft stack, why that is beneficial for analytics, reporting and insights. So first of all, let's talk about Excel. Everybody's favorite thing to complain about is, of course, when an Excel spreadsheet breaks, freezes, it's being pushed to its limitations. But of course, it's one of the most widely used pieces of software in the world, and it has its place. There's no getting around that. It's a brilliant tool, and especially when you're looking at data entry, data management, and financial data analysis and modeling, budgeting. Everybody has used Excel and understands its benefits, but companies and organizations around the world, as I say, use Excel and probably out of its context and push it to its limitations. A lot of the time Excel is used as a database, which it shouldn't be because there's a limit on how much data it can be used. Actually, when using it as a database to then display and report on data, again, has its limitations, because where Excel falls over is where there's too much data and formulas, which sort of drastically affect the performance of the spreadsheet. There is a limited amount of analytics that can be achieved from using Excel, and that is mainly because of the processing power and of course the ability of insights that are within the software itself. A key problem with Excel, which many people come across and we get several complaints about, is multiple users and how people can collaborate using Excel. For example, sending one document to another colleague and both trying to access it and update at the same time, getting conflicting copies. These things probably resonate with a lot of people watching this. So I can almost hear the stress coming out from the other side. But of course, then that is because using on-premise or offline is almost impossible to really gain benefits from multiple users, because the data isn't shared and it's not integrated. And of course, protection and data integrity, always a topical conversation of actually how can I make sure that, one, my data is accurate, but two, make sure my data is protected and safe. And of course, if you download spreadsheets, save them on your desktop, or have anything locally on your laptop, and you lose that, leave it on the train, as you've seen in the news, people can access that information. It's not secure. So there are ways that, of course, cloud computing as well, and using cloud-based programs such as Power BI for storing data, reporting on data is has significant benefits in that area. And again, so as I said before, common issues are where people actually don't know where there are problems, and because there are formula errors within Excel spreadsheets, everybody can resonate with this as well, where people within their own companies become the Excel person, whether he or she sort of understands a spreadsheet better than anybody and it becomes their intellectual property. That person then leaves the company, or something else happens that changes that, and then of course there is that single point of failure. So that's an argument for where Excel has its place, and also where moving to the cloud sort of gets over those limitations as well. And of course, loss of data and work, as I said before, saving things locally and working on that, and then losing physical devices can of course lose that, the potential to lose that information, that data, those spreadsheets, whereas of course cloud computing would allow you to back up data, and it's not a physical thing that you can lose. It's always, you always have access to it through the internet and through the cloud. So I'm just going to show a quick example of an Excel-based dashboard. Here we go. That shows a summary of a few graphs and charts based on some land registry data, so property information, and split by client portfolio. So this specific spreadsheet has, I think it's around the region of 200,000 rows of data in here, which is only a fraction of the land registry database of the past sort of 20 years, which is available, publicly available data. And we built this dashboard in Excel to show first of all, what nice looking format that you can create from an Excel spreadsheet, but additionally the problems that you can come with this is that, yes, it tells me good information here, so split by group what the percentage of the data is through the y-axis here of the percentages, and then also the split by client group, and you can include regional filters as well as we've got on here. But as you can see, if I click on region D, sort of starts slowly processing in the background as it's trying to filter all that data. As you can see here, it's calculating. Because when it's doing that, it has to recalculate everything that's within the spreadsheet. So 200,000 rows of data, all of those may or may not have calculations associated to those. So when you apply things like filters, as long as you've got the calculations on, then there we go, it's now changed about 10 seconds later. So it's just an example of how processing performance can be an issue. Sharing this with other people then becomes, if I share this and somebody makes a change to the data, saves that, then you've got two sources of the truth. So yes, it's significantly slower and harder to harder to share that information and really get insights, because you become frustrated with the program itself. So that's an example of one of the problems with slowly processing spreadsheets. Another is that actually getting into the data from this. Anybody who has used spreadsheets a lot within their time working, is that you can run pivot tables and reports from data, by drilling into, it's a key phrase, drilling into the data. So one problem that we have with Excel is that actually if I want to see the makeup of group 2 and how that is split by region, I would have to create another chart, or I'd have to sort of find the raw data and filter into that. Whereas within things like Power BI, these analytical tools, are significantly easier to drill into the details of those insights. So that's hopefully a good example of an Excel spreadsheet that's used as an analytical dashboard, but of course also highlighting the possible limitations within that. So I'll just flick back to our presentation. If I move on now to actually how Power BI can enhance your analytics. So people working with spreadsheets and data and passing this across to one another within different departments, you will have shared frustrations with everything I've talked about, but I just want to shift the focus now onto Power BI and actually what the program is and some key benefits. So being a cloud-based analytical tool, Power BI is accessible to anybody with a stable internet connection. You don't need to be emailing or sharing spreadsheets with one another and data sources that then of course become problems with multiple sources of the truth. As the first point here, everybody is adjusting to remote working, so actually gaining access to data and insights from home is of course is at the top of everybody's priority list. Cost reduction and efficiencies are of course top of mind within that same environment we're working in. So actually reducing cost and increasing efficiencies, so giving people access to information so they can make business decisions, so they can increase efficiencies and therefore reduce costs of time saving, and giving people access to information so they can make more informed decisions. And of course people needing insights so that they can react to market shifts and unpredictable changes and trends that are happening in this world that we're living in as we speak. So it's giving people access to that right information so that value can be discovered, explored, and open people's eyes to things that are happening within organizations. So key benefits of Power BI, as I say, is discovering value in any data, whether it's data from a spreadsheet, whether it's a stock list, whether it's an accounting system, whether it's a CRM, ERP system. Value exists in all data, and actually going to that next step with your data and analytics is discovering value that you didn't know was there. So looking at different data sets, comparing, contrasting, and realizing that there is more to it than that meets the eye at first instance. Personalizing your business and reports for your business and KPIs. This of course means that you're not just reliant on abilities within Excel and people understanding the spreadsheets, but it's personalizing proper business intelligence reporting and tools so that it's personal for you, your department, your business, and actually turning that into something of meaning and of value, so that it's whether it's an added benefit to your client or actually to something that you can commercialize and then sell to your client base. Either way, it's actually personalizing your data and starting to uncover value within the data that you may have within multiple systems, and joining the dots between those areas. And of course, spending less time answering business questions. So I did touch on this a second ago, but actually making business decisions and answering questions that are informed and are based on data, rather than sort of a finger in the air assumption and estimate that has been a way of working in recent past. So I just want to show you an example of a Power BI dashboard. So this is a sort of taking what we had in Excel and showing you what could be. So this is a dashboard based on the same data from the Land Registry of property prices across England and Wales. So this shows you just what's possible. So instead of showing regions, which are just sort of flat labels within Excel, you can actually use geospatial reports and mapping to represent data in a really meaningful way that sort of resonates with people. There's also different views of how to present charts, graphs, and analytics so that we can take different meanings and different information from the reports. This is an example of quite an interesting, cool feature within Power BI of actually an animation that you can play. So you run it across multiple years, so you can see actually how trends have evolved over time, which is quite an interesting feature. Another interesting feature within Power BI, as I touched on when showing you the Excel version, is a drill through and understanding the data at a deeper level. So if I want to see here sales volume year-on-year percentage growth across the UK, if I right click on a specific area that I'm interested in and go to drill through the level that you can start seeing and analysing and understanding better, just purely from using a more powerful tool. So if I nip back here. So just another sort of a couple of examples of key features within Power BI is it becomes a more intuitive tool because of the power behind it. So as you can see on the screen here, there's an example of asking a Q&A within the tool. So you can actually type in real language in English, what is your question, and then the tool itself actually provides answers, and not just answers the reports and the insights based on the question that you're asking. So it's really, as in, very, very intuitive, because you can type questions that you need to know and then be presented with the data directly within the system itself. Sort of exemplifying really the power of Power BI and how intuitive and user-friendly it really is. On top of that, of course, and again going back to a few minutes ago, is Excel does have its place and actually can work hand in hand with Power BI. So actually the rich integration with Excel, and as long as there's a consistent data model used between the two within your organization, then actually you can overlay Excel data and bring in tables of information that give you more analytics, as you can see on the left here, built-in tooltips of insights that actually give more information about specific key fields within this example here with companies. And also a really interesting addition now that we're all remote working and working within teams, the integration of Power BI dashboards within teams themselves is really powerful for sharing analytics and insights across team members. This is an example here of within our Power BI team channel, we embedded a COVID vaccination dashboard, so we could see number of vaccinations and across England that are happening as a weekly basis, just so that more of an interesting piece across the team, so people can track what vaccination regions are happening, and just more of an information piece. But it really just shows the power of how to share information and the ability of integrating with other Microsoft products that are used across businesses, so that you're engaging more people and providing analytics and insights to the fingertips of people within the teams. Okay, and I think that's it from me. I'm just going to hand over back to Kelly just to take any questions. I saw a couple popping up as I was talking, but hopefully that gave a good insight to everybody over the Excel to Power BI and benefits, and where Power BI in particular can help with data and analytics.
Thank you, Jordan. I'm just looking through the questions now. There has been a few. Kathy has asked that she wants to share dashboards with her colleagues, and they've already got Power BI desktop, and she's asking, can they do this?
Good question, because I suppose one of the interesting parts about Power BI is how it's shared and how you do actually pass information from teammates and certain teams within your organisation. So you can certainly do that, and the way to do that is through what they call Power BI Pro licenses. So everybody, if you've got a certain Microsoft license, you will most likely have Power BI Desktop, where you can create these visuals, create the dashboards that we went through, for example, within a sort of developer environment, and then you can publish them, and then you can share them within your organization for people who have what they call, as I said, a Power BI Pro license. So it's the main reason that the main benefit really that for Power BI is to share and integrate with multiple teams. So yes, it's absolutely something you can do. You just share it through your Power BI workspace online, and then essentially publish it, as we said at the start, to the cloud, so it becomes accessible to everybody.
Good stuff, thank you. Yeah, well, there was a similar question from Joe about licenses specifically, just asking if we've got any more resources on that. And we do actually have a handy guide which talks through the right type of licenses and what it does, etc. So I'll share that with everybody when we've finished. Just a couple more questions. This is quite a timely one actually, from David, who is asking, what is PowerFX? He's heard a bit about it in the last week or so and just wants to know what it is.
Excellent question. So PowerFX has been within the last couple of weeks has been released by Microsoft as it's within what they call the Power Platform, which is Power BI is an application within the Power Platform. So is Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent. PowerFX is actually a way of standardizing, a way of analyzing information, bringing in information that's in more of a Excel-like language. So it allows programmers to manipulate data as if they would do in Excel. They're using similar names for functions and formulas, so that they can not only just bring in data, but manipulate it so that you could do forecasts or other sort of functions that exist within, as you picture Excel, but within Power BI and Power Applications.
Good, thank you. And just finally, James is asking whether they can use Power BI if all of their data isn't in Excel.
Again, very good question, because a lot of people do use Power BI, but they just connect it to spreadsheets. So you're sort of not getting past the problem there of offline working, because you're still downloading the data into a spreadsheet and then connecting your Power BI to the data that exists in that spreadsheet. So you still not really got over the problem there. So again, one of the major benefits of Power BI is that they are pre-built connectors or APIs that exist with hundreds of different systems. So instead of having to download data into a spreadsheet from your CRM system to compare it to your Google Analytics data, so you download both and then compare them, what Power BI allows you to do is connect directly into the data sources from those two systems. So yes, absolutely, it's something that you can do and should do if you have the technical capabilities to do so. And it's not super complex. There's a lot of good resources out there that do help with connecting data sources. It's like when you connect to a data source, you select Excel. When you select the other options within Power BI Desktop, when you select the other data sources that exist within there, it's the same process really, but it means that it is all then cloud-based. So yeah, absolutely, that you can do that and probably should where possible.
Thank you. So I'm just conscious of everybody's time actually, so I think that's it for today's session. If you do have any other questions that you want answering, feel free to send them over to us afterwards, and we hope you got something from today's session.